problem. And I look at the other guys and I said, hey, this is an opportunity. What's it worth to you, Frankie? Ice cream? Sundays? Boy, you drive a hard bargain, Bob. Okay, if you don't rat me out, we're going to go to the Sunday drugstore. So we did. We got Sundays, and we never said a word about it until tonight. Legend alive. Now, we've heard the crafts, we've heard the cotters, whether that's true or not. Kelly, John R. Kelly.
All right.
Yes. You gotta say it. He works. Yes.
I don't know where to start. I think it was wrong naming your son after me. I also wish, or I know Frankie wishes he were here. The one thing that was ridiculous was Frank lecturing cotter girls about male superiority. Now there's an oxymoron. Frank doing it, I mean. But some of the stories bring back memories like of Marge and Fred. I think he was called First Out Fred. And that meant first out of the parking lot after church. If you did anything to keep him from being first out, the man was angry for a week. And teen, if you were in front of his car, you wouldn't be here. Anyway, getting back to Marge. You know, Marge was so angry, and there's a couple of McConnells that have been really angry at me. But it took me at least a couple of years to convince Marge that I had nothing to do with the Bay Hill thing. And the reason I know that she forgave me is that I think she gave me $10,000 in her will. I don't know how you other guys did. There's another McConnell that I feel I really helped his career, but I'm not sure he appreciated it. That would be Uncle Dick. Uncle Dick is 12 years older than I, and I was at the farm in Vernon Road when Dick was starting off on a new business adventure. He was going to be an egg farmer. And I would say he was probably 14 or 15 at the time, and I was probably 2, so it was remarkable I had influence. But he had this huge crate of eggs that he had accumulated over several weeks, and he had it out in front of the house that we saw in the video, and I was out there by myself. Me, maybe 2 years old. And remarkably, I just thought it was the neatest thing. I'd throw an egg and break. I broke every egg in that huge crate. And Dick, I think he stayed in his room for about a week. But I really feel responsible that it became Richard McConnell, MD, instead of Dick McConnell, egg farmer.
We have got time for a couple more stories. Oh, Father Ray?
Mine's only a question. It's only a question.
Yes, sir.
But it's a significant question for this locale. I'm going to ask it because there's going to be a moment of silence after.
Don't stand up.
Now, you're going to be allowed to have a moment of silence to answer the question. Now, we talked about the crafts, Cotters, Kellys. Does anybody here have an exciting story about a Max Power.
How about him?
No, did you guys ever do anything exciting in your lives? Come on, Paul, all right. Come on. There we go.
Take a minute, Paul. Yeah. Take a minute.
Deep breath.
Well, that question is coming, can you, is your mic coming through okay? That question is coming from Ray, who, living in Traverse City, Sue and I have had the pleasure of having a lot of just impromptu visits at our house from Ray Cotter. He'd come up on a motorcycle, or, hey, Paul, you got any beer in the house? And he would sit down and we'd have a beer or two and talk. And we had visits from Ray growing up here for years and years and years, because Ray was always kind of passing through town on all his various assignments and parishes and whatnot. So that's actually one of the real pleasures of the family, is having these impromptu get-togethers, and Ray's been a big part of our lives, really, for many years, since Sue and I have been together, I think. We used to meet down at Sledder's Bar here in Traverse City, and
We're
Ray
asking for a Max Power story.
When I think back about the McConnells, a couple of things come to mind. When we were real little, Mom and Dad would pile us all into a station wagon, and we would go down to Mount Pleasant and visit the Cotters, or go over and visit Uncle Paul at the farm at Rosebush. And I have this vague memory of playing with the Cotter boys, and my mom and dad would tell us before we got down there to the farm, now be careful around those Cotter boys, those guys are roughnecks. and, you know, this is coming from, Joan Maxwell, so it's true. And Joanne. And but I do have this vague memory of going down and we actually did get in trouble. I think we all started playing in the barn, and we went up to the higher level in the barn. We weren't supposed to be up there, and it was something about, somebody had the bright idea about throwing bales of hay down to the lower levels, and they'd be bursting on the floor. The bales would break apart, and Uncle Paul gave us a pretty stern lecture. I remember that, and I was just a little kid. I think the Cotter boys were all doing the pushing and throwing of the bales. The Maxwell boys were kind of like,
I think it was a craft.
One more little memory that really sticks out for me is the McConnell family. To me, always means family, most of all, and our common Catholic faith, and a lot of spontaneous fun is what I always think about the McConnells. And many years ago, when our kids were real little, Sue and I had the bright idea that it actually turned out really well, but at the time it was kind of crazy. I got a hold of an old borrowed camper trailer. It was like a 23-foot travel trailer camper, and we took the kids out west to Yellowstone. And being a teacher, I had summers off, and it was just a great trip. And on the way back home, we came through the Upper Peninsula, and we had the idea of spontaneous. Hey, let's stop, and this is when Ray was stationed in, what was it called, Ray?
Flat Rock.
Flat Rock. We pulled into Flat Rock in the morning. We were to go to Mass, and we thought, well, Ray will probably be, we can see Ray. So I think we looked a little bit draggled. You have to realize this camper that I borrowed, I was working on it so the lights all worked the night before we left to go on our trip. And just picture, I think we kind of looked like, that old show, the Beverly Hillbillies? I think we kind of looked like the Beverly Hillbillies on our trip. Our kids were all kind of like ragamuffins, and the trailer was held together with duct tape. We had things taped to the outside of the trailer, like wires and everything. So we pull into Flat Rock. We go into Mass, and we sit down, and Ray recognizes us, and Ray's there getting ready to say Mass. And I look over and I elbow Sue, and I say, Sue, I think John R. and Karen are here. They're sitting over there on the other side of the church, and Bob and Pat are here. So and Sue and I were kind of, pretty excited, and after Mass, we kind of all got together. So we went out for breakfast and had this leisurely, very fun, because I remember it so well, this get together at a restaurant where we all had breakfast, and our kids were all kind of messing around, but they had a great time too. The kids were little. But that to me was kind of a capstone to the summer. And when I got home, that was a really pleasant memory of a really fun, spontaneous meeting that was part of the McConnell plan. And there was no one happier in Traverse City than me when I pulled into the yard to turn that borrowed trailer back to its owner.
Fantastic, Paul. That was, I just want to say that I was going to talk about our common Catholic identity also in my closing remarks. So.
There's a priest present.
I know. Okay, now we're almost to the end here, thank God. And one of the greatest storytellers in the McConnell family was Uncle Charlie Higgins. God bless him. He really was. We have one Higgins here. If she wants to just say a word, no? There's some story about Butternut, Wisconsin, that I don't think we should tell that story tonight, though.
I could tell the story of how Mom and Dad met.
That would be wonderful.
Okay, it's kind of a funny story.
Well, we need funny.
It is funny. It's funny. Okay, Mom lived at Tilly's boarding house. And I know, like, Aunt Isabel, I believe, did, and Aunt Monica maybe did, and it was this beautiful old mansion that's still in downtown Detroit, which is now the Hecker House. It's an attorney firm. But anyway, Mom lived in this boarding house, and Tilly really liked Mom and her sisters. So when men would come to visit to check out the house, they'd have Mom and others have dinner with them. And so Dad came one night with a buddy of his, and Mom had dinner with them, but she had to leave because she had a bowling date. So she left. A month later, Mother's in a bar. And if you ever remember, one of my dad's favorite phrases about my mother was, I found her under a barroom table and I made a Christian woman out of her. And it's half true. And in fact, Uncle Bert told me the other half of this story because Mother was at a bar with this guy, some man, and Dad walks in. And Mom said he had never paid a wink of attention to me prior to that. But when Mother went to the powder room, Dad went up to this guy and said, don't bother calling Catherine McConnell anymore. And the guy said, why not? And Dad said, she'll be busy. And the guy said, doing what? And Dad said, she'll be busy with Charlie Higgins.
That's like a very old school thing.
Apparently, and correct me if I'm wrong, Uncle Bert, but somebody told her to drink scotch because she wouldn't get as drunk. So Mother did it. She was drinking scotch, and she told Uncle Bert years later that she had too much to drink that night. Because apparently she was kind of friendly to Dad. But that's Dad. The second guy was also a 3M salesman, and a month later he called up Mother and asked her out, and she said, "I'm sorry, I'm busy." And he said, "Not Charlie Higgins." And she said, "Well, how did you know?"
A couple of housekeeping. We also have some dessert, if anyone has not had dessert. Also, I've been told by the bouncer that there's still a few checks that need to be paid to the Knights of Columbus. Is that right? Give them to Mary, but we know who you are. And by the way, there's a couple of comments.
Yeah, I'm better being serious, but no, about the Max Powers. You know, it's a delight to live here in Traverse City. It's the Max Power name, you know, as quiet as it might be, as picking on Paul there. But you know, in sharing Ray's name, there's 3 Rays here, of course, tonight after Raymond McConnell. But I mean, it's a quiet, prestigious name. And how many times do I tell people, You know, Ray Maxwell, yeah, he sells out at Marsh. You know, how many years have you been there, Ray? How many years?
20.
Selling cars, GM, and
29.
29 years he sells cars, and I'm trying to send him customers all the time, but they have Max Power meets here, and they never want to lose that name, do they? The Max Power hasn't owned it in how long?
54.
1954. 1954, they don't want to shake that name. But lastly, I have darn near worked it into a homily. If you walk into Marsh Brothers, Ray Max Bar's off to the left. And I've especially doing that since the last car I bought, after a couple of us have bought cars from Ray Max Bar. I bought a Toyota.
Oh, hang on that.
I find one quiet song here, and if I get it on we're gonna quiet, it's called Old Man.
Wait, John, I want to mention one more thing.
Oh, boy.
One more thing.
Legend or lie?
You named
Right
me
now,
after
this is not even funny. But there's one family that wasn't mentioned, and that's the Curleys. And I have to say that my youngest girl was in Manhattan for a few years, and when we were visiting, I called Dan Curley. He came over, and they became friends and went out and did stuff. But Dan is doing fine. He has a pension, he's got Social Security, and he speaks fluent Dutch and maybe 2 dialects. So he's hired by the cruise line that brings Dutch people in, and he does the translating to English, and so he's very important to them. But he's still around, and against some opinions, or contrary to some opinions, he's not Looney Tunes. He's doing well. So Teresa's in D.C., I guess.
One last thing. I'd like to give another shout out to my sister Mary and Gary that put this all together. And I'd also like to thank all the Max Bars that were here and are always here helping out. Other than Mary, you didn't see any crafts here, did you? No, of course. Gary. Well, he's not, he's a craft, but he's not a craft. He's a Shanahan. He's Irish, but Bob and I are just the front men for this whole show. That's all it is. Okay. But the other thing I wanted to say is, Marissa, what a gift it was tonight for you to sing. Ray and Lori, we love you. We're going to be there for you. We support you in everything ahead. And Lori, you are wonderful. And I'd like to have applause for Lori. I was going to just close with, God bless you, go Irish.
I just want to, can I say something before you close it? Thank you so much, John, everybody. Been quite overwhelmed all weekend by this. It's just, I tell you, I just realized I've been dealing with this thing for 8 months, and it's been a lot of tough times, obviously, but I went pretty public with it early because I figured, well, maybe it could help somebody or help a few people, and I'll tell you, the prayers, I get so many messages, emails, and I've always known I've been really blessed with the best family anybody could ever have, and including a lot, an immense number of great friends too. But when you really go through something like this and you see and experience the outpouring from everyone here and many more family members, outpouring of prayers and support. And it's funny, I get these calls like, I'll go a couple weeks, maybe no calls, then I'll have like 3 calls from family members in a day. And it's always one of those days where you really need the calls. Like maybe I got some tough, information from the doctor, or maybe I was dealing with some pain or some anxiety, ups and downs. But it's always amazing how the support comes exactly when you need it. So, and I'll tell you what, this weekend I really needed it, and just profoundly blessed by all of you and all the people that couldn't be here that wanted to be here. So just want to thank you, and especially thank you, Mary, for doing this, all you've done, and just God bless you and thank you. It means a lot to all of us, and you put so much effort into it. It's so beautiful, the videos and just the whole idea and being the driving force to get this together. It's just amazing to get it happen so quickly, you know. God's behind all this, of course. There's no doubt. He's been with us, with me throughout this process. I see signs of it all the time, and just thank you very much. And I'm going to keep fighting, and we'll just see how it goes day by day. Thank you.